My classmate next to me, and he tripped me up. I smashed my face onto the pavement and my nose broke. There was blood everywhere. And he said, I just wanted to see if her blood was brown. I'm third generation British. I'm different. It was clear I'm different. But what does that mean? Are we all different? Are we the same? What makes us different? And what I want to do is at the end of this talk, leave you with a tool so that you don't have to have the long, windy journey that I did. I was 9 years old, and I lived in a small village in rural England. Everything was white. There were no African people, no Asian people, no Latino people. My school was white, my village was white, my town was white. And when I was walking to school, there was my classmate next to me, and he tripped me up. He put his leg out, I fell, I smashed my face onto the pavement, and my nose broke. There was blood everywhere. I had to hold my face on my way to school. When I get to school, the teachers looked at him, looked at me, and asked what happened. And he said, I just wanted to see if her blood was brown. So that sent me on an inquiry. I'm different. It was clear I'm different. But what does that mean? Are we all different? Are we the same? What makes us different? And that journey of values began at that moment. I have now done a PhD in the subject of values. I have studied in London Business School, MIT, Harvard, written a book about the subject because it became my lifelong inquiry. And what I want to do is, at the end of this talk, leave you with a tool so that you don't have to have the long, windy journey that I did. I'm going to give you what I wish I had known when I was 20. So let me take you to an activity. Think of a time when you felt confused. Think of it. Maybe it was the time you were choosing a course, what to study. Maybe it was the time when you were deciding, which job do I do? Maybe you're choosing your boyfriend or girlfriend or your life partner. We all have those moments. I've had many of those moments. At those micro and macro decisions that we make, what is helping us? What is guiding us? In those moments, you are being guided by your values, by an inner compass. And during this talk, we have a little bit of time to really fine-tune that compass and make sure that that navigational tool, the compass, is guiding us in the direction we wish it to. My mother. So, when I was 18 years old, I got a place at the University of Oxford. And instead of being proud, my mother put her hand on her head and she said, "Oh, who's going to marry you if you go there? You'll be too educated, and it's such an elitist, even whiter institution. You're going to marry some guy called Sebastian. Then I'll not be able to talk," this is my mother saying, "I won't be able to speak in my mother tongue to your children. I'm third generation British from Punjab, the north of India, in my heritage. My children would be fourth generation British." It was my grandparents that came to England during the Second World War to rebuild Britain. But my mother wanted to speak her mother tongue to her grandchildren. We both wanted my happiness. The ultimate value or aim was happiness. But for my mother, the way to that happiness was through stability, security, to get married to a good Indian boy. I also wanted happiness, and my route to that happiness, I thought, was to explore the world, learn as much as possible, and be as alive as possible. And I thought that would make me happy. So, if I had known then what I know now, I would have talked to her from the point of view of her values. But I didn't know that. I then go on to graduate, and I take the highest paying job I can get. I end up working for JPMorgan in private banking. I'm in the French-Italian team, and I'm itching to make a positive impact in the world, because I had studied development economics. And here, I felt I was making very rich people a percentage richer. So it had me thinking. At the time, I was with my colleagues making impact ideas like the summer reading list, giving very rich people a reading list for the summer to educate them further. Today, my book is on that reading list. It happened this summer. But how did it happen? So, I took a sabbatical, a 3-month break, to think about how could I really get closer to making this impact. And during that 3-month break, something magical happened. And so my thinking was that, having just graduated from the London School of Economics, I also wanted to see the socialist society. I'd lived in a capitalist society. I know the pros and cons. I've seen communist societies. I know the pros and cons. But what about a socialist society? So I decided I just want to be Cuban in Cuba. I don't want to be a tourist when I get off the plane. I just want to act as if I'm Cuban. I can look Cuban. There was just one thing holding me up. That was that I had bought a big hammock. And so in this hammock, I put all of my branded goods into this hammock. And I go to Cancun Airport. It's the last stop before I go to Havana, which is the capital of Cuba. I ask some random lady. Here she is. She had bright red hair. She had a green silk suit. Her name's Kathy Elder. She stood out. And I said, "Excuse me, madam, will you check in my hammock? When you check in, can you take my bag with you?" This was pre-9/11. Thankfully, she checked in my bag, but she didn't let it. I said, "Let it go round and round on the conveyor belt when you get to LA, and it will end up in lost property. You don't need to touch it." But she didn't do that. She sent me an email to say, "There were sniffer dogs all over your bag. What was in this bag?" And I start sweating. "There was nothing in this bag, just some trainers and some Colgate." She said, "Only joking," in her email after I sweated a lot. "But if you want your bag, you're going to have to come to my home." So after my time in Cuba, I went to her home. And when she opened the door, Brad Pitt was in her living room. Whoopi Goldberg was who she was having a coffee with that afternoon. That evening, we went to a party, and Mariah Carey is waiting for the bathroom behind me. I hadn't asked her who she was or what she did. But basically, she was an author, she was a filmmaker, she made documentaries, and she said, "In you, that day when I helped you at the airport, I had already decided I'd like for you to work with me." So that was my moment. Do I break the golden handcuffs of JP Morgan, a possible $1 million salary, bonus, etc.? Or do I follow this path where no one would even believe the kind of life I'm going to live, but I could explore the world finally? So that's what I did. Now, because I'm in Korea, and because I knew I was going to do this talk, I went just in the last few weeks to go to the difficult countries that I hadn't yet been to those small, small islands off Indonesia and Australia. So I know you want fresh ideas, you want innovation, you want something that other people haven't heard. So no one in the world has heard my recent discoveries. I believe that all of us are wanting to be our very best selves. So how do we lead our best life? Whatever person you are, there are some things that you are gravitating towards. Similarly, in countries, we are confined by our geography, by our history, by our psychology in where we're from, the sociology. So it means that every country reaches their values or goes around a slightly different pivot point. For example, I went to the smallest country in the world just now. Tuvalu has the smallest population. You see that dot? That's where I was, just as I land. That's the airstrip. The country, this is one of the widest points in the country. There's one street on one side of the runway, the other street on the other side of the runway, and that's about it. So you can imagine, they do all their sports on the runway of their country. Before that, I had the opportunity to go to Tonga. Tonga has never been ruled, has never been colonized, 3,000 years of history, and they've remained sovereign. I was lucky enough to meet with the Crown Prince of Tonga. And the value there is this kind of pride. You can see it in just their stature, just the way they hold themselves. They're also the rugby players of the world. They're in every rugby team you can imagine. Play for England, New Zealand, everywhere. But they also have this sense of sovereignty, which I think is super inspiring. What would our lives be like if we brought that level of sovereignty? I can move you on to Samoa, another small country, but a country where I had the opportunity to meet with all three prime ministers. This is the godfather prime minister of Samoa. He's run the country for 22 years. And through him and through all the population, I could see that duty and service is really important to Samoa. The women are taught to be of service to their families, their service to the church. The men are taught to be of service to the older generation and the younger generation. This lady was the former prime minister. All of them showed how they were working for something much bigger than just themselves. It wasn't an individualistic society. As the presentation showed, it was a we, not I. I know we look up to Japan. As we know, the value of respect in Japan is critical. And it's something that's taught when you're at kindergarten. You're taught, fold your umbrella in this way so that the water doesn't drip onto the floor. Take off your outdoor shoes, put on your indoor shoes. You see those values, even if Japanese people go to the World Cup, they'll clean up after themselves. It is inspirational. And again, where would I be if I took that on? And that takes me on to Korea. Korea, I'm not just saying this because I'm here, is one of my most favorite places. I feel like there's a sense of Zen dynamism. Everything is dynamic, forward-thinking, new trending, and it is an exciting place to be. What I hadn't realized is what Jeju is. I've never been to Jeju before, but here I see both that dynamism and that vitality, but also a balance that comes from being close to nature, from being connected to agriculture and having fisheries and growing your own tangerines. There's this sense of calm. So I have found, through all my studies and all my work, that if we get close to 5 values, we learn how to prioritize those values, we can create that sense of balance. If you're just dynamic, there can be a shadow. If you're just loving, there can be a shadow to even just love or service. But if you choose 5 values and prioritize them, have a first value, a second, third, fourth, fifth, there is a sense of calm. So for a moment, let me take you to your values. Please close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Now let me take you to your 80th birthday party. It is a celebration. And the people you love and adore are in that room, and there's one person who you really knows you well, and they are giving an amazing speech about you, about the last 80 years you have led. What are they saying about you? Hear that speech. What is going to make you smile from the inside out? Maybe they're saying, he always made me laugh. He always makes me laugh. Or, wow, she's been such a trailblazer in her career. Or, he always thinks about the environment and makes sure that we do the right thing. Or, she lights up the room when she comes in. I'm going to pause for a few seconds. Let that conversation, that speech be in your mind for you. This is the legacy that you wish to create. Don't come to your decisions from your values of the past. Come from where you wish to be. Choose the values that are most important to you. Compassion, care, consideration, community, change, whatever it is for you. And I promise you that you'll be leading a life that will lead you to greater success, fulfillment, and happiness. I really want to thank JDC and Sebasi for giving this opportunity. 감사합니다.